All right, welcome to No Budget, the Good Friday episode where we have brought back alcohol and a live studio audience.
Yay!
Yes, you can hear it. All right, let's get right to the show because we have a party to go to after this. Claire Milan. Oh, and I should introduce everybody. I'm Isla Dennison. Joining us again this month is Andrea Luigi. And at the end, Claire Milan.
Hello.
All right, Claire, what do you got for us?
So my topic is, when do you continue with a project and when do you give up? So I've been on projects before where you're going down a road and you think, right, should I continue or should I just call it off, you know? Have you ever been in...
He's been like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know.
Yes, the show's called No Budget, and I often think to myself, when should I? So, like, have you had this? Like, is this coming from a current example?
Yeah, I just think it's quite interesting. So I've been in film shoots before as a producer, I suppose, and also in a writer where I'm trying to get things made. And you kind of keep pushing and pushing and try to open those doors, and it's just not working. So when do you continue to push, and when do you continue to, to wait until those doors open, and when you just say, right, that's not working, that's not enough, should I step back?
You believe in the project?
Yes, a lot of the projects I do believe in, but sometimes the doors just don't open to make them happen. So maybe sometimes it's best to kind of leave them and get perspective.
Do you ever think about going back and reevaluating your pitch?
Yeah. I think that's a really good idea. I think,
pitch is everything.
Well, as a writer, say, like a lot, it's so hard to get something into production, but you're right. Maybe sometimes you have to, when a door isn't opening, when people aren't coming on board, you have to look at the project again and think, right, maybe I'm not doing the right approach. Maybe I need to go back and write, something different, and maybe that could be an option.
Yeah,
so,
pitch is everything. Like,
it is, definitely.
And especially in a present day and age where no one has the attention to really focus in on anything. And we were talking about this earlier about a project that, someone can be so honed in on and be so focused on and think that it's the most wonderful thing in the world, but nobody else gets it. And then they don't have any way of projecting that to the other people that people, can understand it and go with it. So the pitch is everything. That one-line pitch is what you need to sell.
Absolutely. And sometimes the timing mightn't be right. In certain things. There's certain trends that happen in certain films as a writer anyway, creating stuff, and maybe the timing mightn't be right. So maybe in a year's time you might come back to a topic that could be trendy, But I suppose that's from a writing perspective. But even as working as a producer, like I've been on shoots where there's been stuff like weather problems. When do you decide, right, I have to call this off, or when do you push through it? But I do think that as a producer, there's stuff within your control and outside your control. And as long as you control the stuff within inside your control, there's nothing you can do outside that, but you can manage them. Like the weather, you can't, if the weather said it's going to be absolutely beautifully sunny and all of a sudden there's a storm out of nowhere, you can't control that, But you can, I suppose, work around it.
Yeah, but is that calling the project off, or is that just ending it for that day to reshoot it on another day?
Yeah, I suppose that's maybe reshooting another day. But when do you get to a certain point where there's too many variables? Like we interviewed Dara from Skeleton Crew, and Dara Clancy was one of our interviews, No Budget, and everything went wrong, but he pushed through and pushed through and pushed through. And sometimes you wonder, is it best to kind of say, right, I need to just step back from this, rather than pushing through so much where, the whole film suffers.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's your opinion on it? Yeah.
No, I mean, and that's a problem I think, especially big budget films have, is they invest so much money into it to a certain point. They're like, well, we have to finish this. In the business world, that happens a lot of times where they're like, we've invested so much into this project. And once you have that financial investment, you don't want to lose it, so you keep forcing it when you probably should just give up. I'd say it's step back from it and kind of I think reevaluate. I think Andrew's on the right track. It's like, what is it that's causing it not to happen? Is it just is it another shitty film that doesn't need to be made, and you just need to acknowledge it? And I think a lot of smaller filmmakers have that problem. They think their idea is genius when the reality is it's a stupid idea, and that's why it's not happening. So I don't know.
I definitely think if you're in the middle of a project, you can't see it.
Yeah.
When you're trying to get something off the ground, you sometimes it's good maybe the word isn't to kind of give up, maybe just to step back and say, right, I need to look at this thing critically, not emotionally, but critically. Do you know, maybe that's something you can do.
Well, I mean, you ask yourself the question: why did you get involved in the project to begin with?
Yes.
You know, what sold you on the project? Thank you, Lionel. I've been wondering about the lint on my body.
Well, look, little dents.
Actually, we're lucky we don't have green screen.
I know. I was saying that. I was like, God help me if Milo goes green screen because I'll be fucked.
Because we did a lot with some green screen, you know, and you certainly would
I would
disappear.
disappear. But at least it would be my face and the black couch, you know, and I'd be with you,
okay.
Claire, so that works. But look, I think really truthfully, like if you are divested into a project, that project had something that sold you on it. So you have to figure out a way to sell the overall public. We have a studio audience tonight, for example. So how do you sell them, for example, on what we're talking about?
We've been serving them alcohol.
That's
Yeah, that's
exactly
the way
a
of
good reason.
serving them. Yeah.
A Good Friday excuse.
Yeah.
But,
As you can tell by our almost empty bottle of booze.
Yeah.
I'm happy that I brought that tonight.
It's good because my tiny little thing of whiskey was not going to feed this crowd.
We're Irish.
But truthfully, like it's that one pitch that you're able to get out because people don't have the attention span to stick there.
Right.
So if you can sell them on that pitch and get them for the second one line or the third one line, then they're going to be caught, and at least you captivate them. And I mean, look, Milo, you can say that maybe, you know, somebody has this envision about this project and it's a shitty project. But perhaps maybe it isn't a shitty project. Maybe it's a project that needs the light shown on it, but they don't know how to shine the light on it because they're so like tunnel visioned into it. And they don't get it. And they need that objective person. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we have producers.
Yes.
People that can step away from it in an objective point of view and look at it and say, okay, I think that this project has this to portray. And they can present that to other people like distributors, studios, other people, that they can give the one-liner and captivate them. The other thing is it's all about who you know. So if you are able to have those connections that you can talk to someone, then that person's going to listen to you.
Absolutely.
If I don't know you, then I'm not going to listen to you. So even the one line isn't going to captivate me. And it could be the most amazing project ever, but I might not, you know, even hear you.
So you really admire people who have, like, even Terry, talking to him, and just he pushed through, and managed to get, I know he got a lot of slated for Charlie Casanova, but he managed to, it's amazing, like a lot of people would have probably turned that project down, and he just got a group of people together, put an ad up on the internet for free, and it's there's a lot of, so the energy goes into that, and you're wondering where the best to direct your energies sometimes, you know, as a producer and a writer.
Where have you found yourself wanting to give up?
I suppose the certain projects that I've written, you know, only certain percentage of them.
So stuff of your own.
Yes.
That you've loved and put your heart and soul into, and you want to walk away from it.
Yeah.
But that's very common, especially as a writer. I mean, you will write something and it might get optioned and will never get made. So that's the nature of being a writer.
It is, I suppose. It's actually happened to me with a theatre script. I was trying to get off the board called The Candidate, about a politician. Actually, I wrote it like 4 years ago, and it's funny, I couldn't get it made. I couldn't get people to support me. I got to a stage reading, but some of the stuff came true. And this was like 5 years ago, and this was before Trump and all that, and people said, you know, this wouldn't happen, and people wouldn't believe the politician I wrote about. But now my politician was very tame compared to what's happening now. So maybe 5 years ago wasn't the right time. Maybe it's now. It's mad. It could be just the timing wasn't right, you know.
Yeah, well, that happens a lot too, actually, with film.
Yeah.
You can have a production that will go right to distribution, and it's just not the right timing.
Yeah.
And it'll just get buried in the dust, and like you can come back to it years later and be like, oh, that was an amazing film, but no one's ever seen it, and they don't know it.
It is funny though that political stuff isn't made more. Like, there's not more of it in the country. Maybe we're too close to it, you know, maybe that's it. But it's, no, it is quite interesting. It is quite interesting.
What was that film with Warren Beatty, where he played the senator that kind of went off the rails?
Oh, Bullwinkle? No, Bullfest? Bullfinger? Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Bowfinger was Steve Martin.
Okay.
But Bulworth, that's it. Yeah, Bulworth. That film actually didn't get a lot of recognition at all.
Yeah.
I didn't
Like,
see it.
but it actually is a really good film. It's very interesting, and it has a kind of twisted sense to it about the politician side, because he just really goes off the rails, and like he becomes a totally different person. And I can't remember the reason why he becomes a different person. I don't know if he got like I don't know if he got a prognosis from a doctor or something like that, that he speculated that he was going to die, so he tried to change things entirely. But that, I mean, any type of politics film that's based on things like that, like Wag the Dog, for example, is another great example. A lot of people didn't really focus in on that unless you had some intelligence about politics. And it's a deep subject that people don't want to, like, they don't want to entertain in their minds because it disturbs them a little bit.
So,
and they get upset.
do you think there's the final word in the topic? What do you think the final?
Final word for our audience: producers are not bad. There you go, Andrew. What do you have for us?
Well, I'd like to talk about how screenwriters write a screenplay, and how a lot of times we as the viewer can come away and remember certain lines in that screenplay, and how it kind of resonates amongst us as a populace that watches a movie. So, for example, I noticed that a lot of people older than me love Get Busy Living or Get Busy Dying in Shawshank Redemption, and how it resonates with them, and how they love that film, and how it was such an important film that shaped them in such a way. Other things like, for example, Frankly, My Dear, I Don't Give a Damn, spoken by Rhett Butler's character in Gone with the Wind. Things like that. Does the screenwriter actually, and you're a writer, so like, does the screenwriter actually, when they're writing those scenes, like for example, You Have Me at Hello, Jerry Maguire, did you ever think that when you're writing a scene that, oh, this is that one scene that will resonate amongst my audience, and the audience will just love it, and like they'll run with it?
I don't think they have any idea, but I do think they have an instinct for, like, as a writer, you know, when a certain scene is kind of truthful. For what it's not like, we've seen really bad scenes in films, and you know, it's just what they're saying doesn't sound like robotic. It doesn't sound normal. It doesn't sound true to the character. So those lines that are spoken like that, become iconic, are very true to the character, I think, and that's why they become iconic, because the writer is trusting in, they know their character inside out, I think.
So, for example, Nicholson's character in A Few Good Men, you can't handle the truth.
Yeah.
Do you think that the writer was actually sitting there and speculating to themselves that, oh, this is how it's going to be on screen, and that Nicholson potentially will say this because that's who I want to play Nathan Jessup, you know?
I think a lot of writers, it's not so, they're just sitting there in a room with themselves, and they're just writing the scene and just the characters. They're not thinking that far ahead, probably, at that stage. Because if you do that, it's going to sound forced. You know, if they're trying to, you can't control what the audience is going to say, or going to think. You know, and they can't control what lines they'll take on board. You know. Like, unless it's kind of a sitcom and they're kind of forcing it, maybe they kind of might think that's a bit different.
Line, punchline, line, punchline.
Like with IT Crowd, you know, we'll turn it on and off again, kind of thing. You know, they kind of have an idea. It's a bit of slightly different writing, but something like a drama, how would they? It would be too forced. They were going to say, right, this line is going to be big. You know, it wouldn't be natural enough for it to become iconic, probably.
So do you think, like, for example, Patrick Swayze in Dirty Dancing saying, nobody puts baby in the corner. Do you think that was in any way in the screenwriter's mind, like, oh, that line, that's the moment that changes and shifts everything for them?
Maybe he's writing it, but he wouldn't have thought that would become iconic, I'd say. He's just thinking about the scene and just thinking what the characters, what's their motivation.
Do you think there's anything in the screenwriter's mind that actually makes things, like where they would say to themselves, oh, that's iconic. So from lint to blanket, you're all right with that?
It's kind of bothering me.
Okay, so let me just move on and just, I want to talk about, so I have a wonderful friend who's sitting over there who told me about something called the Mandela effect.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of this?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so the Mandela effect, and we were explaining this to Milo earlier, there's a populace of people that believe that Nelson Mandela died in prison. And they don't realize that he was actually released, became president, and died of old age.
Yeah.
and they just think that he died in prison. From that, there are things in film and television that we've gone away believing. So, for example, in Star Wars and Return of the Jedi, we all think that Darth Vader, who is sitting over here, there we go, that Darth Vader says, "Luke, I am your father."
Is that a salt and pepper thing? Sorry.
I'm not
It's a
sure,
speaker.
actually.
Oh, I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So it's like a
But there's
little
a Darth
iPod
Vader.
Bluetooth thing.
I think it's a Bluetooth speaker. Yeah.
That's nice, Milo. Is it yours?
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
Wow.
Okay, so
Great, yeah.
Luke, I am your father actually was never said. It was actually said, no, I am your father.
Oh.
And we all come away thinking that he said that.
Yeah.
Or another great example, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He opens up with, "It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood" is actually not true. It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. Or Forrest Gump, Mama always said, "Life is like a box of chocolates." And Milo and I were talking about this before. We actually liked that line, but it was actually, life was like a box of chocolates.
Okay.
A Silence of the Lambs, we all think that he says, "Hello, Clarice." But he doesn't say, "Hello, Clarice." He actually says, "Good morning," which is entirely different. But we like to believe that he said that, and that's important.
Fascinating, isn't it? I wonder why that is.
The most important one that struck home for me was the Queen in Snow White, where we all think she says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall," and she actually says, "Magic mirror on the wall." And then, "Who is the fairest of them all" is actually, "Who is the fairest one of all." So to me, like, I actually think that those are lines that audiences have come away and revamped for themselves and made it such an iconic thing that's represented the film. And it's possible that journalists, film critics, and other people have maybe streamlined it by accident on purpose that way. I was telling Milo before that in Tommy Boy with Chris Farley, there's one scene where he's in his office that his dad has just given him, and he's talking into the fan saying, "Luke, I am your father," and I can't help but wonder if the American public went away thinking that's actually what was said. Or "Mirror, mirror on the wall" is another great example from Snow White. For the longest time from my childhood, I remember that's what she said, but apparently that's not true. And I saw that in the theater, actually, not to date myself. Thank you, Adrian.
So have people written this down, like have journalists written this in film, like say magazines and on the internet?
I'm not sure.
As the misquoted ones?
I'm not sure,
so we're
but
picking
people
up.
come away remembering
Yeah.
that, like, and that's how they think of things. And I think that's really, it's very interesting because, like, I think that makes a film iconic in its own way. Like, life is like a box of chocolates, but it's not. It was a box of chocolates. So to me, that's really interesting that we've misconstrued the statement, but we've misconstrued it because we like it that way. But I've written quite a bit, and like, I write lines sometimes that I want to hit home, and I think about it when I start to create the verbal language in the sentence, and I think to myself like, oh, that will actually resonate amongst the reader that's reading my line. But I wonder, do they actually like think to themselves, will it become iconic? Will it be like the key moment in my screenplay that will hit home?
Yeah, I don't think, I'm with Claire on this one. I would say if you do that, then it does kind of create a forced feel to it. And, so that's.
And again, why does it become iconic? Because the audience are investing in the characters.
Yeah,
If we don't care about the characters, we don't care about the lines.
Yeah.
Now, are you guys thinking along the lines of depth? Because when I think about Nathan Jessup's character in A Few Good Men, and Nicholson saying, "You can't handle the truth," or what does he say? He says, "You want the truth, you can't handle the truth," and he yells it from the stand there. It almost seems forced to me. Like, that's a classic Hollywood film.
Well, in that, it's to force an action, So I don't think he's thinking this line's going to be iconic. He's thinking this line, forces something to happen in regards to the interaction between Tom
It makes him
Cruise
look
and stuff.
guilty in the whole
Yeah.
situation. So,
But I don't think he's thinking it's going to be an iconic line that people will repeat. I don't know. He doesn't. Hey, who wrote that? Does anybody know?
Aaron Sorkin.
Okay, Aaron Sorkin.
We email him.
Yeah, I was going to say,
find out.
Aaron Sorkin, when you watch
We'd
this
like him to
episode
be a
of No
guest
Budget,
on-
what we want you to do is leave a comment below and let us know what you were thinking when you wrote that line.
But does the line work if anybody but Nicholson does it? Is it iconic unless it's his performance? Claire, you're the actor.
Say you can't handle the truth like Jack Nicholson would.
Well, I can't handle the truth. I can't do it. I can't.
You got to be firmer. You got to be like,
I
you want the truth, Claire? You got to can't handle the truth.
Act, monkey, act.
I can't handle the truth. It doesn't sound right with a Galway accent. Do you know what I mean? From a female. So
I don't know, Claire. You could be quite aggressive sometimes.
I could,
I mean.
yeah. But I do think it's the acting as well. So I think Glenn is right, because if I said it, it's not going to sound the same. Do you know, it's from a Galway actress. You know?
Well, let's put like Meryl Streep up there. If Meryl Streep said it.
Yeah,
Maybe. She's intense. Yeah, she could do it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, food for thought. I think we're kind of on the same page. We disagree with you, but that's fine because you're only occasionally on the show. And with that, we are going to draw this episode of No Budget to a close. We're going to go have a few drinks on this Good Friday to celebrate that it's Good Friday. And we will see you next month.